Live from Johannesburg, this is Tonight with Jane Dutton. A push to get land affirmative action or an election ploy? Tonight, ANC NEC member Ronald Lamola is live with the president's new plan to change the constitution. Also on the show, we ask, should sex work be decriminalized? And after the countrywide total shutdown put the exploitation of women in the spotlight, will anything change? Tonight with Jane Dutton. It's an issue that divides the country. The ANC wants a constitutional amendment to redistribute land. A real solution or just a proposal to earn votes? That's my question for ANC NEC member Ronald Lamola. What's yours? You can tweet us, hashtag Tonight with Jane Dutton. Our phone lines will also be open. But first, Shahan with the news.
Thanks, Jane. Appreciate it. These are our top stories tonight. Violence broke out on the streets of Harare. Police fired live ammunition at protesting voters in the capital. One man is reportedly dead. ZANU-PF has won the majority of parliamentary seats, but the official results of the presidential election is only expected tomorrow. The opposition MDC says the military's interference was unjustified.
We call upon the four lawful law enforcement authorities to be human and exercise restraint accordingly. The force used today was clearly disproportionate and unjustified. The brutal murder of citizens is not the way to address the concerns they are raising. We are all Zimbabweans.
And we'll get a live update from Harare just after 9 o'clock. President Cyril Ramaphosa will institute inquiries into advocates Nomgcobo Jiba and Lawrence Mkhwebi's fitness to hold office. Jiba is the Deputy National Director of Public Prosecutions, while Mkhwebi is the Special Director of Public Prosecutions. The President informed both of them of his intentions today. They have until the 10th of August to make submissions on why they shouldn't be suspended pending the inquiries. Last month, the Supreme Court of Appeal overturned a High Court decision that struck Jiba and Mkhwebi from the role of advocates. They were both reinstated after that decision. Well, thousands of women across the country took to the streets to say no to violence against women. It's part of the hashtag Total Shutdown campaign. Organizers say they want to bring the economy to a standstill to raise awareness. SAFTU, COSATU and FEDUSA are some of the trade unions backing the initiative. The ANC Women's League also held a march to address the same issue.
As long as we allow other people to control our bodies, we will never go anywhere.
And if you don't know, well, now you know. The ANC is defending its resolution to amend the constitution to allow for land expropriation without compensation. President Cyril Ramaphosa announced his party's plans to go ahead with changes to Section 25 of the Constitution. It would make it easier for government to expropriate land without compensation.
We're going to give them title deeds. If we're giving you a farm, we're going to give you a title deed to that farm. If we're giving you a house, for instance, the RDP houses, we're giving them title deeds. So we're not nationalizing the land of this country. Because if we do that, it means we're also going to dispossess black people who today have land.
All right, those are the headlines. Let's find out more from Jane and Ronald.
Thank you very much for that. Well, the ANC says changing the constitution is the best solution to decide who owns what, but does the constitution have to change to ensure land is fairly distributed? In a dramatic announcement last night, the ANC said the answer to that question is yes. Tonight, ANC NEC member Ronald Lamola is here to explain why. You were there just a little earlier on. I'm glad to have you here in the studio with me. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
Why the need to change the constitution when you can get land expropriation anyway?
Is to remove any doubt, to make it explicitly clear for society, but also to respond to the call of the people. that is already clear in the recent public hearings that are ongoing, which will end on Saturday. So the ANC is reaffirming that process, and it's also saying when the people have finished speaking, it's going to respond to their call. We have already heard what they are saying. It's clear they want land to be redistributed to the people. People need to get the land across the breadth of the country. We need to respond and unlock. Many young people are unemployed. They must also be able to participate in farming. Also, many young people are migrating to urban cities. We must be able to have means to expropriate land that will enable them to reside and in well-located land where they can go and walk to work.
Okay,
so
and
it's not only about farming, it's also about dealing with the apartheid spatial planning.
Okay, is changing the Constitution the way to get it, though? I mean, you're a lawyer. What's wrong with the Constitution as it now stands?
There was some doubt that it has not been tested in the concourse, the principle of just and equitable, and so forth. So that's why we're saying, let's remove any doubt and any ambiguity in this regard. Let's be clear. We are going to redistribute the land to the people. We are going to amend and make it explicitly clear. And we're
will change?
We're going to detail exactly how and which land is going to be taken for who and for what purpose in the expropriation bill and the redistribution bill. Because you know already there's an expropriation bill before Parliament, which was saying we're going to find a way of amending it to incorporate this principle. Therefore, the Department of Rural Development will proceed to give us the redistribution bill, which will detail how we're going to redistribute the land. So it's very important that this must be done, because you will know that most of the land, in terms of the 1913 Land Act, 13% remained in the hands of black people, and almost 87% of the land of the country. We have learned some lesson in the past 24 years. We have redistributed a particular percentage. We are now sitting at about 72%. So we want now to transform that 72% to reflect the demographics of this country. If you like, you may call it some kind of affirmative action.
Okay, and I see where you're going with this, and I do want to deal with that a little bit later on. But to get to that point, if you need to change the Constitution, you need a 2/3 majority in order for that to happen. You will need the support of the DA and the EFF. I don't think the DA will get involved. The EFF, you got different opinions when it comes to who owns the land. Is there some sort of deal that you'll have to strike with the EFF? What would you have to do to bring them on board?
Remember, our position is clear. With the current Constitution, we are proceeding to draft the bills. The expropriation bill, the redistribution, all the bills that we need to redistribute the land, which will also include the principle expropriation.
I know, but you can't get there without getting the support to pass.
No, we can.
So would you trade off with the EFF?
With regard to the bills, we can. We have a 62% majority in Parliament. We can, with regard to the bill. And that's why we're saying the expropriation bill, which is currently before Parliament, we are going to amend it, the one that is in Parliament now, and put the expropriation principle without compensation provision there, and what circumstances and so forth. So with regard to the Constitution, obviously you need a variety of society. We are engaging with NGOs, with everyone. Also, we are open to discussions with the parties in Parliament as to how can we move forward so that the whole country comes together and we move as a nation to resolve this question, because we are of the view that this is an important national question which must be addressed by everyone irrespective of political affiliation.
Okay, but there's still many processes to get through in order to get it passed. Let me just ask you...
There will be, remember, the committee is still going to report, there will be debates, so there's still a lot of space where we are going to engage.
Okay. In the meantime, I mean, do you have any idea how much land you own? I don't think it's clear, even after 2 decades.
It's clear. We have done an audit by the Department of Rural Development. It has done an audit, and that's what I'm quoting. It says that 72% of commercial agricultural land is in the hands, is privately owned, is in the hands of old white males, and also trusts and companies which are owned by old white males. And the state has got about 13% of the land, and majority of that is communal land. So it does not also mean really is the land in the hands of the state. So it's clear there's land disparity, there's land hunger. Particularly, the biggest issue that we have to address is the issue of urban land. So the state needs to respond to all those issues.
Okay, and I'll tell you why I ask you that, because I looked at the land audit report, which was released earlier this year, and it says that you have no records of land ownership.
No, the land audit report, it does state who and how. It even categorizes it by province by province. It's very clear. There's no doubt. The only there are people who are casting aspersions to the audit report. I have read the Institute of Race Relations and other people who are saying, but the reality is that
maybe it hasn't been put out clearly enough. Maybe it's lacking in clarity.
It is, because they have followed in best practice, international best practice to do the audit. So if they followed best practice, universally accepted principles of doing a research, we have to accept their research unless somebody will come up with a different discussion which we do not agree with. Why must we not believe the audit report of rural development and believe the one of the Institute of Race Relations? Yeah. So we have to rely on the department's audit report because we believe it's credible. It has followed a world best practice.
Okay, let me go back to what you mentioned a little bit earlier about how little land has been transferred. Yeah. Could it have been done differently, and how are you going to do it differently now? I mean, there has to be clearly dramatic change
on that one,
away from the Constitution.
On that one, we really agree that at some point we must have taken our eyes off the ball. It could have been done differently. From the beginning, we should not have paid market-related price for land reform, because the Constitution is very clear under which circumstances, how, and so forth. It put 5 principles: the history of acquisition of the property, the state investment, the market value. But the legal jurisprudence only went to take market price, which is not what the Constitution says. So what we should not have done was to pay the 54 billion which we have paid to those that have benefited under apartheid, which means that they again benefited in a democratic society. So that was the mistake which we did, and we admit that we did not interpret the Constitution correctly. So that's why now all departments of the state needs to start. We have said they must no longer pay market value when they do property. They must do according to what the Constitution says. But what is the challenge is that the Valuer General is raising an issue that the legal jurisprudence is still heavily skewed on market value. So that needs to be developed to respond to what the Constitution says.
And I should imagine everybody speaking with one voice, probably under one department, because I think that's an issue as well. I'm also wondering
It's no longer an issue. That's why the President has appointed the Deputy President to head the interministerial team, so that all departments that deal with any forms of acquisition of property on behalf of the state to redistribute to the people.
Because I believe that was a big problem. Let me ask you, how much of this is due to the pressure put on the ANC by the EFF, which really finessed the conversation about land expropriation? Did the ANC succumb to that pressure?
The ANC was formed to respond to the land question.
Yes.
It was formed in 1912.
Yes, I know, but the EFF took it and pushed it further, didn't they?
When the ANC came into power, it put the restitution, it put various bills that relates to redistribution. The reason why we see that there was some kind of failure and so forth is because the ANC did something. So we did something, we're learning from those experiences. And the conference of the ANC resolved, so we were put under pressure by the conference to speed the process of land reform. The conference was very clear, and there is no pressure. And you will see even the EFF, when they took the resolution, they were just being cynical. They took it from the conference and ran to the National Assembly for a motion, while the ANC was busy with its studies to see how it can implement this. So
okay, if it was
we have
so
been
obvious,
put under pressure by our members.
And is this an election issue? How much of this is an election versus an economic issue?
It's not an election issue. It's a social and an economic issue, because we are responding to the call of the people during the public hearings. The ANC is responding to that call. It's saying the people have spoken. Let's listen to their voice. And I think by Saturday is the last day of the hearing. But it's already clear, the tail end. And we are affirming that process. We are not really undermining it. So we are responding to that. But also there are economic realities. Many young people and women across the country are unemployed. And we need to unlock the land for them to come into the space. But obviously, this is not a silver bullet to unemployment. That's why the President spoke about other stimulus packages and so forth. But this will also enable us to deal particularly with the issues of people living also in rural areas, coming to town and so forth. They must be able in rural areas to farm. They must be able to find employment in their own rural areas. For example, there are a lot of farm dwellers, youth in particular, who are currently farming. who, if given the farms, statistics have proven that they will be able to run those farms productively.
Okay,
so
Ronald
that's, we
Lamola.
need to intervene there.
Thank you very much for talking to us. It was great to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Now, opposition parties have had mixed reaction to the president's late-night announcement. Up next, we hear from Rolf Meyer. He's one of the key negotiators who helped pave the way for democracy 2 decades ago. This is Tonight with Jane Dutton.